Okay, good morning, everyone. Getting our videos settled. We decided to show our faces and do video this time. So if we have any technical difficulties, bear with us. Hopefully you can all see my screen, or did it go away? Nick or David, Ryan, can you confirm if it went away or not? Or is it still there?
It's still
Okay,
there.
perfect. So thank you again for the opportunity to join us virtually for this travel talk. We tend to hold these the last Tuesday of every month, but we did an impromptu one just to provide an update from several of our leaders that you can see are joining us here, and each will have the opportunity to talk and give an update regarding their respective divisions. So in registering for this, we did ask for questions. So we've incorporated them throughout, and we did receive a lot of well wishes, so we appreciate everyone's support from that regard too. So we will leave time at the end. You can see there is a Q&A button that you can ask questions, and there's a chat feature as well too. So if you have any questions throughout, and if there's anything specific, we will be addressing either from someone of the leadership team or from your account manager, anything specific that we can address. So thank you again, and I will move to the next slide and let David take it over.
Good day, everyone. I'm glad you could be here. Thought we'd give an update on what Shorts is doing and how we're handling this crisis, and hopefully you are all weathering this event as well. For Shorts, just kind of a quick update on our cash position and volume. I guess I'll first talk to volume. We kind of measure our volume year over year, week at a time. And as of last week, compared to previous year, our transactional volume for our corporate travel and sports travel was down approximately 88%. And I think that's probably par for the course within the TMC industries and obviously the airlines. The good news is we were prepared for this on the onset. We had kind of communicated to our employees what we would do in terms of payroll reductions and layoffs literally when this was starting up, and we had just announced that. And so our first course of action was basically a 20% cut across the board, and then obviously the bottom fell out. So we, like everyone else, or most everyone else in the travel industry, we resorted to layoffs, and we did that approximately 2 weeks ago, and continued our pay cuts, ultimately bringing our payroll down close to 50%. Right now, our cash position has us going through the summer and into the fall without additional funding, which I think is great. We're in a much better situation than we were during the financial crisis back in 2008, 2009. But obviously, we're conserving as much cash as we can, as I think every business is, just to weather the storm. This storm hasn't quite let up yet, but obviously, if you're reading the press, it seems like it's using New York as a benchmark, it seems like there was a little bit of pressure relieved as of yesterday. So hopefully the stay-at-home initiatives for April will help us come out of this a little bit sooner rather than later. We're obviously applying for congressional loans, the PPP and under the CARES Act. We've had that teed up, and I believe those have been submitted. That allows you to continue to keep employees, and it's a forgivable loan. So we'd potentially keep our existing staff and or hire back more depending on the details of that program. We also have a fair amount of clients. It's less than 50%, maybe close to 35% who are under management fees, who are directly paying for some of the salaries of our employees, and the majority of those have remained intact. And in those situations where we have reduced hours, we've passed that savings along to our client. So all in all, I think the health of our company, it's not keeping me awake at night, whether we're going to survive this. What's keeping me up at night is, geez, when will this, the impact and deaths, throughout the U.S., when will that bottom out and start to tick upwards? Obviously, I think everybody's concerned about their health and their loved ones' health, and that's probably what concerns me the most. Our goal for our employee base is obviously to retain our talent. And when volume starts to come back, our goal obviously is to staff back up when that comes. Probably go to the next slide. our kind of new day to day, this is a time, obviously we're really busy, the last few weeks doing refunds and other items. I was actually on the phone with someone who had access to MIDT data, and it was interesting. There was actually negative bookings in March and April through MIDT, which is kind of unprecedented. Negative bookings are obviously the opposite of positive and not very good. So that, I think, dust has settled. But our new day to day is really taking our existing staff that isn't tied to the business that it was daily, is to step back and take a look at our business so that we can come out of this, fighting and being in a better position. Our NPS scores coming into this were positive and were great, world-class in most cases. But our goal coming out of this is to refine some of those processes and day-to-day tasks so that we can do better and serve you better. One of our core beliefs is satisfying the customer, at a profit, and that's what we're focusing on, is how we can satisfy our customers, once we come out of this. Our financial health we'll continue to monitor, and hopefully we'll be doing things better, when this ends. The overall industry, we'll continue to monitor the situation. Obviously, volume has not ticked up. Some of our clients, they expect volume to be, obviously paused throughout April and into May. Some of our sports clients, they are booking fall travel, which is great. A big unknown is what the sports industry will do, both collegiate and professional, coming into the fall. Obviously, winter and spring championships were canceled. Spring championships were canceled because really spring sports couldn't play, and there were so many games that were needed to be able to obviously participate in those championships. So we're hoping, fall will come back and those eligible athletes will be able to compete and have their championships. It's interesting. There's all sorts of speculation on what is happening within the industry. Airline volume plummeted 75% in Q2. IATA is, projecting a mild recovery in Q3, or the second half of the year, I should say. That'll be interesting to see what happens. Our expectation, I think others have expected, full recovery not to happen until 12 to 18 months. If the industry bounces back 50% by August or September, I think I'll be pleasantly surprised. But obviously we'll wait and see and monitor things as they continue. The airlines, the probably press you've already read, they burned through over $61 billion of cash. They also have a $35 billion refund liability that's out there, but sold tickets that have been unflown. And I know that's of concern to a lot of our clients, is the unused tickets you have. I know the DOT is mandating a refund of any flights that were canceled. However, flights that were not flown due to the customer's, desire or actions, that has not quite been settled yet. But it's kind of a delicate, a delicate situation. The airlines are in dire need of cash, but also the corporations have spent a lot of cash. So who's funding who? And I think that'll be interesting to see where that ends up. With that, I'll hand it over to Megan just to give a little more details on the next slide. Thank you.
Yeah, and so continuing on from David's thoughts around the airlines, we just wanted to provide some reassurance that every ticket in our system is being tracked. So with managing the ever-changing airline policies and credits, we are having to make changes to our automation and client reports in the portal just based on these changes, extending the credit time, excusing cancellation penalties, and allowing for those name changes. So we are continuing to monitor all the airline changes and travel alerts from all the countries and providing as much information to clients as possible, especially the DOT enforcement notice. We'll have a communication in your inbox today, but we are monitoring that since they didn't provide any specific deadlines for the airlines. And then just operationally, wanted to just fill you in on a task force that we have in place for key stakeholders that are meeting regularly. So we're taking this time to map out our processes, update our filters, and then just capture these airline policies as they continue to evolve. So we have a desired relaunch for May 1st, but knowing that could continue to change based on our suppliers. From the account management perspective, our goal really is to ensure that we're maximizing all funds and reusage for clients. And so we're taking into account the groups, so working with the airlines to capture group tickets, and try to manage the concessions, whether or not it's funds. We've seen some gift cards, soft dollars for each group reusage, knowing that's a big piece of what we do. And then from the individual perspective, in order to minimize those lost dollars, we're going to reach out to each client specifically to determine their unused ticket process on how we can leverage contractual agreements first with the airlines, and then also how we can work with the airlines directly, knowing that these excessive funds, you might be taking a different approach. So just knowing that the ultimate goal is that we're going to work with our clients and really work through that reusage. So asking for a little bit of patience and navigating all the unknowns, but we're always welcome to the specific questions. But just as far as wanting to reiterate that we are working holistically and trying to create some new automation and really be able to focus on some of the reports and things that will be valuable to the clients in the long run. So next, I'm going to hand it off to Ryan, president of STM Charters, and talk through the charter piece.
Hello, everyone. As we've been talking about, it's been an interesting past 2 or 3 weeks. A lot of anxiousness amongst the carriers that we work with. A lot of uncertainty. We've seen a couple of carriers that have already declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. We've seen a couple that have were slated to exit the charter market anyway, have accelerated that process, and are no longer offering charters. So it's been trying, and I think one of the things that we've been working on over the past 2 to 3 weeks is, with all the cancellations, just refunds, credits. Obviously, a lot of the carriers are in survival mode, and they're holding on to as much cash as they possibly can. So, working on, again, the refunds, getting those out to the teams that have canceled. We have all of those on file. We're tracking all of those, but certainly the patience is greatly appreciated as we move through the next 30 to 60 days and hopefully start getting things back online. So a couple of different things that we've been noticing as we've continued to look into the fall. Thankfully, we are still booking and contracting trips into the fall for some of the different teams and some of the different clients. We're getting a lot of requests on changes to our force majeure language, and including some type of clause in there for any type of schedule changes, cancellation due to this pandemic continuing through the summer, which obviously we certainly all hope is not the case. But one of the things that we are starting to see some of the carriers do is, even though they will add a clause around the COVID-19, they do include some type of cancellation penalty. Number that we've been seeing is 10%. It's going to be the industry, but they are looking at in those contracts. One of the other things to note that I don't believe is related to COVID-19 is they are changing the TSA rules slightly for teams that are traveling on aircraft with more than 60 seats, which for the fall specifically would be the football teams. In years past, we've been able, if there's 3 or more trips in a contract, we've been able to exercise identity-based screening and only screen 10% of the group. Well, that has changed for the upcoming year. They're only going to allow 25%, or 25% rather, will have to be screened on every trip after the first trip. The first trip in a given contract would require 100% screening. And I think that that's due to some possible abuse of the system by different teams and things like that. But we are starting to see that, and it is something that we'll need to keep in mind for the upcoming fall season. So I guess the last thing, as we've talked about, we've taken a look at our processes and what we're doing on this side. Obviously, the collegiate travel is a large portion of our business, but the situation has allowed us to really look internally and see where there's some other opportunities for diversification. So we've started to get into the cargo market a little bit more, and we're starting to see that business come into play. We've started to work more on executive jets and that type of business. We've been getting requests for corporate shuttles. So there's the good thing is we're still here, and we're still booking trips, and we're available to help. So with that, I think I get to turn it over to Mr. Gillen on with Driven.
Thank you, Ryan. Let's make sure I'm unmuted. Between athletic competitions and school field trips to capital cities, the spring travel season accounts for 50 to 75% of a motor coach company's annual revenue. The CARES Act package earmarked money for Amtrak and for the airlines, but did not earmark anything for the motor coach industry. And to put that into perspective, Amtrak received just a little over $1 billion in earmarked grants. In 2019, Amtrak employed roughly 20,000 individuals compared to 2 million by the charter bus industry. And last year they carried a record 32.5 million passengers, which was 200 million fewer than the motor coach industry. And I don't carry any grudge against Amtrak. They're a solid organization, and as a source of commuter transportation for essential workers, they need the assistance. The purpose of the comparison is just to put the collective, albeit fragmented, size of the bus industry into perspective, and that huge industry came to a grinding halt last month. The CARES Act SBA loan opportunities are obviously available for motor coach carriers, but every individual bus company has to stand in line just like every other small business. And for many, those checks will arrive too late, and unfortunately, a lot of bus companies will have to close their door before this fog lifts. So what does that mean to you, the traveler? There will be fewer charter buses on the road this fall. Usually when a charter bus company closes up, a competing company will buy the book of business and increase the size of their fleet to accommodate the new business. But because of the financial strain on all bus companies, competing carriers won't be in a position to buy more buses and service additional clients. We find that the best solution is to secure your charter bus service sooner than later. Waiting until the last minute to book your bus just won't be an option this fall. Unless we're still on lockdown, equipment will be hard to find at the last minute, and you'll run the risk of overpaying to have to deadhead equipment in from greater distances. Some motor coach carriers have also begun requiring non or partially refundable deposits to combat their current cash flow situation. Over the past couple of weeks, we've been working with our carriers to eliminate those deposits for shorts clientele. Many bus companies will also be increasing their rates once travel starts up again. However, we've been working with our carriers to maintain the rates we negotiated last fall for 2020. And every carrier in our network has agreed to waive cancellation fees related to COVID-19 travel bans as they pertain to your fall travel planning. I'll say that again. All of our carriers are waiving cancellation fees if your trip is canceled due to the pandemic. Lastly, some bus companies that are confirming future charters right now will be going out of business between now and the date of your travel. It would be great if every bus company placed notification calls to all their customers if they went out of business and had to cancel charters, but some are just going to disappear. We saw it happen in 2008, and we'll see it again in 2020. Here at Shorts, every carrier in our network is required to have us listed as additionally insured. And at the very least, the insurance carriers will notify us if a policy has been canceled. We've also been talking to all our carriers throughout the COVID-19 pandemic and have a good sense of which companies are going to make it through this. If you're chartering motor coach service on your own, it would be wise to have your organization listed as additionally insured so you receive some sort of notice if you have to rebook your service. That does it for my time. I'll be available in the Q&A section to answer any specific questions, and would like to introduce the amazingly knowledgeable Kim Moore with SDM Stay to provide you an update on hotels.
Hello, everyone. I wanted to start out by sharing a few facts of the current state of the hotel industry. Over 65% of the hotels in the US are currently closed through the end of May to the beginning of June. In the first week of March in Nashville, one of the hottest meeting destinations in the country, occupancy was at 80%. Last week of March, it was at 6%. Hotels that are operating around the country are near major hospitals and are being used for medical staff and patient families. It was just announced last night that Hilton Hotels will donate 1 million rooms in partnership with Amex, which will be given to the frontline medical professionals from April 13th to May 31st. There is a concern that some hotels that exist today will not be able to reopen when this is all over. U.S. Travel Association characterized this unprecedented hit on the U.S. travel industry due to COVID-19 as having 6 times the impact on the travel industry than 9/11. It expects to see a loss of 4.6 million travel-related jobs. After 9/11, the return to travel was a pretty quick rebound for the travel industry, and the demand specifically for hotels was back within 9 months, with a little blip in September 2012 due to the fear of traveling. After the 08-09 recession, hotel demand was back in 5 months, but the rates weren't back for 12 to 18 months. Star Research, which is the hotel industry go-to for rate and occupancy information, came out yesterday with the following prediction that the downside scenario indicates it will take 6 to 8 months for US hotel demand to recover and 12 to 24 months for ADR and RevPAR to recover. However, here's the cause for hope. And looking at some data in regards to the comeback in China after SARS in 2003, 4 months from travel restrictions being lifted, hotels had nearly fully recovered. So what does that mean for rates? There's currently 2 schools of thoughts that we're seeing from hotels: recapturing lost revenue through rate immediately, or recapturing occupancy at rate-friendly terms. In many hotels, there's one person left behind to handle the incoming leads, moving groups, and canceling groups, and that is either the general manager or the director of sales and marketing. Negotiations are taking much longer than normal and are in most cases tougher. Negotiating with a general manager is like negotiating with the owner. It also feels a bit like the general manager or the director of sales and marketing has the last report from revenue management before the hotel was locked up. They're still showing more aggressive rates for the fall than what I believe will actually actualize. As far as occupancy, hotels are still optimistic. However, our corporate meeting clients seem to be pretty apprehensive. Hotels have not seen many corporate association meetings cancel past June. So availability seems to be a bit skewed right now for the fall. In talking to a few of our group clients in just the past few days, there seems to be growing concern over the possibility of canceling the remainder of the meetings for the year. If that happens, we will see a big shift in the hotel mentality for the fall, which will obviously change the availability and the rates conversation. Availability for the fall in the bigger corporate convention markets is crowded. We've spent the last 30 days canceling about 3,000 hotel contracts for our sports teams and moving groups for our corporate clients into fall or Q1 of 2021. Availability for fall will continue to fluctuate with current negotiations of the rescheduling of postponements and the possibility of the continuation of postponements. And finally, how do we protect you? And that's force majeure. We have developed language that hotels are accepting around COVID-19, pandemic, and national state of emergency that will be included in every hotel contract moving forward. That is the state of the hotel world today, but could all change tomorrow, unfortunately. Now I will push it to Megan.
Yes, thank you. I feel like, we all kind of summed it up as here's our professional opinion that could be negated tomorrow, right? So thanks for bearing with us and allowing us to talk through those. But we do have a couple questions. So the first one is for Ryan. For the new identity-based screening that requires the first trip to screen 100% of passengers, does that require 100% of passenger screening on both the departure and return flights, or only the departure?
Yeah, it's a good question. The way that I think most carriers are going to interpret that is that it's required on the round trip, because at one point a couple years ago, carriers were trying to say when they used the three trip rule, they were trying to say, okay, anything after they were considering a segment as one trip. Well, the TSA came back, and I believe that they made a ruling that it had to be actually 3 round trips in order to count for identity-based screening. So with that in mind, yes, you would be required to 100% screen on both the departure and the return.
Okay, thanks. So is it possible for airlines to allow for social distancing? What can they do to ensure safe travel? I'll take that one. Some of the carriers have already implemented no middle seats, no beverage service, which is pretty easy to do when there's only 15 or 20 people on the flights. I've heard less than that actually as well too. So yes, today it seems like they can put those measures in whenever airlines are seemingly empty. But from a future perspective, you know, we've heard distributing more hand sanitizer and cleaning, specifically for the travelers, potentially taking temperatures. So, and then obviously the increase in procedures as far as sanitizing and between each flight and every day. So I think we'll continue to see that evolve because they will have to balance the, you know, return to capacity as well as social distancing. So that's what they've done so far, but that will be an important part of their approach as people build confidence in wanting to fly again. So the next question is for David, and just from an overall perspective, what will staffing look like for shorts when we return to normal operations?
Yeah, so we're going to manage to the volume of travel that comes in. Ideally, you know, if you know your organization or business is set to start traveling and your travel ban has been lifted, you know, communicating to your account managers, you know, as soon as you can. You know, we're hoping to bring back, you know, the majority of our staff that we've laid off. And obviously we have wouldn't quite call it a skeleton staff, but we have a staff that's ready for a slight surge in volume that can handle it, you know, starting any minute. But our goal is to be able to accommodate your business as that starts coming back. You know, our perception now, and I think the industry is in agreement, is that it's going to be a slow recovery, and it'll take some time. So I think that'll make it easier to transition your business in. But our goal is to obviously satisfy your travelers' needs and your needs as we recover.
I think that is all we have for questions for everyone. We have had some individual questions that we will answer on our own and reach out to you directly. And we'll continue to keep you updated as far as email communication, you know, potentially offer another webinar as we are releasing more things specifically about shorts and any way that we feel like we can provide value to you. So ultimately, you know, we are here for you and hope that you all are well. We've had some internal employee communication. David actually asked, can we get feedback from everyone on how they're doing, which unfortunately in the study we can't, but if you do want to share any thoughts, we always appreciate it, and we always want to know that everyone's doing well too, because I mean, as we're navigating this professionally, we know there's a lot personally too. So thank you again for joining us, and we appreciate your time.
Thanks. Stay healthy, everyone.